Hello everyone, welcome back. So in our appium series, today we are going to see how we can perform a scroll operation or any kind of appium gesture by using an appium plugin. Okay, so far we have seen how to scroll to an element or like on the screen or any kind of scroll mechanism by using the W3C actions of the appium, right? Like we were writing all these lines of code to perform certain gesture operations, okay, like long press or like scrolling in any one of the directions, all those things. So today I'm going to discuss actually about an appium plugin which helps us to reduce these lines of code and then perform any kind of gestures. So let me show you that. So appium 2.0 actually supports to create some plugins so that which can be open sourced, and then anyone can just come back to this Git repo or any of the ways to install those plugins and utilize it into their appium framework. Okay, so appium gestures plugin is one of like the appium plugin which helps you to perform certain gestures. Now you can look into the documentation. So actually we have looked into the appium test distribution, right? In this Git project we had seen that how to use the appium installer to easily install the Android, iOS and then the appium related stuff. Now I'm going into the same Git project to get another plugin usage. Now if you go into that, this plugin basically does the drag and drop, horizontal swipe, vertical swipe, even I think the the right, left, up, down, all those directions, double tap on any of the element, long press on any of the element, and also if you are using WDIO or the WebDriver IO, okay, the appium's WebDriver IO with your JavaScript or TypeScript, even you can use the same plugin only. But these above things are meant for your Java, but you can utilize it in any of the languages like in Java or in TypeScript as well. Okay, so for this, the first thing, let's look into the documentation, how to use it. So the prerequisite is that you need to have the appium 2.0 installed on your machine. Okay, perfect. We have already seen how to install the appium server 2.0. okay, and then after that it is telling to install this plugin. You have to use this particular command, appium plugin install source npm. So source is that the npm source or from any other sources. So I will open my terminal, okay, and I will copy paste this one and I will enter to install that. I have already installed, so I'm not going to really install that. Okay, so the installation is pretty straightforward, how you were installing the npm packages. Okay, now the second prerequisite is that after you have installed, you need to make sure that you shouldn't be just using appium to run your server. Rather, you need to use this particular option, actually an appium option, as use plugin and then equal to gestures. Now gestures is nothing but a name to this particular plugin which we have installed. So the developer of this plugin already given the name of that plugin, so that by using that name you can install that. You can use that to run your appium server. Okay, so that is what we need to make sure before running our test cases. Fair enough. Now let's see that what exactly they are claiming here. Okay, what is the benefit they are claiming? So the thing is that we have already seen the gestures, right? Like if you come back to this, right, let me go to the util.java. You can see for different operations, like for your scrolling, we were like going into these kind of lines of code, pointer input, sequence and all those things. For long press, even we were taking these many lines of code, though it is abstracted to a different class, but we have to implement in any of the gestures like these lines of code, right, depending on what functionality you need. Now that is something this particular plugin is helping you to not to really recall and utilize these many steps. Rather, they have decreased all these things. Means they provided us a particular way to kind of hide these implementation, and then you can perform that operation as it is. So for an instance, like because we have already discussed about this particular swipe gesture, right? I will show you how the swipe gesture really happens with this plugin. You just need to write these 2 lines of code only. One is, this is a remote web element slider. This is nothing but on which element you want to scroll. What is that screen panel looks like? Is it a list of elements? Okay, or is it a kind of scrollable element on which you want to swipe it? That is what first you need to identify that. So it's a simple identification of the web element, and then you need to use this execute script. Now this execute script we have already seen in our Selenium, if you are familiar with that JavaScript executor and all those things. Within that, actually you need to provide, this is your key actually here. So this key is nothing but gesture : swipe. Okay, like if you want to drag and drop, so they're providing it, these are kind of just take it as a task name, like a method name. So you need to provide as a gesture : drag and drop, swipe. For vertical swipe also the same thing, you just need to change the direction, like horizontal swipe, so you can give right or left. So which direction you want to swipe it, from right to left or left to right, those things you need to specify. Vertical, for sure up and down, so they are just given an example, but the method is same only. Like you can see, gesture : swipe, and the elements or the options are immutable map up. So it's a map actually here. This map consists of certain items, the element ID on which you want to scroll. Okay, that is nothing but you need to get the get ID of that particular element. Then percentages, how much percentage you want to really scroll. Is it 20%? A small scroll will be happening. Is it 80%? A bigger scroll will be happening on your screen. Then direction, which direction you want to swipe it. See, always keep this in mind. The scroll direction is always opposite to the swipe direction. For an instance, let's say that consider this as my screen and this is a horizontal swipe, right? Now I want to scroll towards right, but the swipe will be happening, like if you think this is a touchpad, then the swipe has to happen from right to left. So it means that if you want to scroll right, your swipe has to happen towards left. So that direction you would need to give as left. Okay, the same thing if you want to do a double tap, gesture : double tap, and then immutable of, you just need to give the element ID. That's it, because it just need the element on which you want to do the double tap. Long press, it's again the same thing, on which element you want to do the long press. Get that element and then dot get ID. Okay, that's it. From this line only we are getting the element dot get ID. Pressure, like pressure is nothing but how much like what you call deep you want to really pressure it, because it's a finger taps we are doing it, right? So you can give some what you call decimal value. The duration, now duration is nothing but how long you want to keep your finger stick to your screen. Actually we have seen this one, it normally goes from 500 millisecond to 1 second, depending on how much press that you will do to perform that long press operation. So normally we give anything between 500 to 1000 millisecond. Okay, so that is how you have to do. And then if you are using WebDriver IO, you can even give this particular line of code. So this is what they are saying. These are the supported gestures that currently it is supporting, but there are upcoming, or the roadmap is there, which they can do the zoom gesture or multi-finger swipe gesture as well. But I think in most of the applications wherever we need, I think these are the pretty much things that we need. Especially we will be focusing a lot onto the long press and also your swipe in any of the directions. Okay, fine then. So I have already installed that plugin. Now let's see where exactly this plugin got installed. So for this I will be going to my Finder, and if you see here into my user folder or user directory, I will be showcasing the hidden directories, and you can see there is something called as appium directory, which is hidden actually. And then you go to the node modules, and under this node modules you can see that all the plugins and the drivers that you have installed will be present here. Appium Gestures plugin, you can see that. Now from here, when we say that use plugin, I mean when we are using this particular statement, right? Like let me just do that. So I'll just open this terminal, I'll just clear it for now, and then I will just run this. So instead of just Appium, I am saying that use this plugin. That's it. You just need to do that only. Okay, fine then. So let me just minimize this, and now I am ready to use this particular plugin as it is. You don't need to really put any kind of pom.xml libraries, no change. It is very much external to your framework actually. Okay, fine then. So let me close every tab and let's do one thing actually. So I have this Android simulator where this is one of the WebDriver iOS project, right? Which I mean an application, native application. So we have already seen this in a couple of our previous sessions. I will be using the same application. I'll go to the swipe option actually here, or this toolbar or the bottom navigation bar. Then we can do any kind of operation. See, you can see this is a swipe panel actually. So this particular screen, excluding this particular bottom navigation bar, is nothing but your slider. So for horizontal slider you can use this one. So there will be a parent element on which we are doing this scroll. We need to provide that actually. That is what the Appium gesture plugin is really requiring. Fair enough. So I'll do one thing. I'll go to this particular scroll Android sequence where we were using the same WebDriver app, right? Native app. But I will do here, I'll just go here. I'll create a new method. Let's say that a test method. I will say I will copy actually this much things just for ease of explaining or time saving. And then I'll just say that, and here instead of this I will say that a test gesture plugin swipe. Let's say I want to do a swipe gesture, and I don't need to really give any parameters here. It's 13 actually I'm using, so I will take it as 13 as my OS, and the app package app activity remains same. Okay, now in this case, if you see here, we were taking this particular statement to click on that swipe option actually to navigate into that swipe screen. Okay, so when it launches the application, it launches to the home screen. Then we are clicking on the swipe, and then we will try to do a horizontal swipe and a vertical swipe as well. Okay, fine then. So now the thing is that we need to identify this particular slider actually, which we are using. For this, we can use the Appium inspector to do that. I have already took that, so I will be specifying that as my slider. So let's do one thing. Let's copy paste these two lines of code which they are giving here. So I will take this one and this one both into my code here as it is, and here remote web element, let's import the class here, immutable of from the Java package. Now the only thing that I need to do is that getting this particular accessibility ID. So let me just get that. So there are two sliders are present. One is vertical slider and then there is a horizontal slider. So let's get that too. And here I will just say that horizontal slider. Okay. Now for vertical slider, actually the accessibility ID is your swipe hyphen screen. So if you just inspect that, you will get that. Now for horizontal one, and it is carousel. Okay, so like this actually we need to specify here. Now let's say that I want to do a horizontal swipe. Okay, so here horizontal slider. So I'll just copy this one, because whatever the slider you want to slide it, you need to get that ID. So you just need to specify the web elements dot get ID percentage, we can keep as 50%. Now the direction. Now this is what actually important thing. Now let's see this is a scroll operation, right? Swipe operation. So if you see gesture swipe, now see swipe is from where to where, from right to left, right? That is what horizontal is happening, means the swipe is happening towards left. So that is why I need to specify is at as left swipe. Okay, now once they are done with that, right, now let's say I want to do a vertical swipe actually here. Now the same lines of code I will be using, but instead of this particular horizontal slider, I'll take this vertical slider, but here I will be swiping from I want to scroll down, right? So it means that the swipe is happening from top to bottom. So sorry, from bottom to up. It means that the swipe direction is up actually. Let's see if it works fine or not. And for this, I will be just specifying some sleep here. Let's say 3 seconds or maybe 2 seconds is enough actually to identify that. And then I will say driver.quit. Okay, like this I can specify. Okay, so now let's run this particular test and let's see that if it is working fine or not. So I think we are getting an error. Let's see what is that. And it is saying that neither Android Home nor Android SDK environment is exported. But it seems I have already set up. Let me quickly go back to the profile directory and then come back to this GHRC, right click, open with Sublime or any editor. Android Home is not exported. Okay, got it. So the problem is that I missed this line actually, export Android Home. Let's see that if it is really throwing the same error or is it working. So let me open this simulator side by side. Oh, okay. So seems like my Appium server is closed. So let me rerun it. So I'll open my terminal here and I will say enter Appium use plugin gestures and then run the test again. Okay, as you can see that the scroll happened from left towards left and the scroll happened towards down. Okay, and it worked fine. There is no issue. So you can see that with just 2 lines of code, we could able to do the left swipe and then the up swipe, which is nothing but down scrolling, and right swipe, right scrolling as well. So like that you can perform. And also one more thing is that this plugin, because it uses the W3C actions, actually the pointer, input and the sequence class, it is also applicable for your iOS as well. So you can simply call the same code into your iOS. In iOS we have seen also this one, right? Like if I open this one, this also uses the WebDriver IO, right? This application, this is my iOS simulator, and here also it is the same thing only, and you can swipe up up, down and right, left. So the same thing you can perform. You just need to, instead of calling our own internal methods, you can call this particular gesture colon swipe, but you just need to make sure that which direction you are giving it. So the same thing you can perform the long press as well. Now let me take you to the long press here. So in this case, again the same thing. I will just copy paste this entire thing. Instead of doing here, we were doing like driver equal to new Android driver, right? Instead of that, even we can take directly this Android launch app, which if you guys remember, into the app factory we have written this logic, so that this driver object can be shared across my file, so across my project. You can see this setter and getter. So if you're not understanding what we can do, instead of directly calling the driver object everywhere, right, what I can do, I can take this app factory dot Android launch app. Now I can simply say that app driver dot get driver dot find element. So I can do that as well. So this is actually your dialer application, right? So if I go to this Android and if you go to this phone app, you can see there is a dialer. You click on that, you long press this, and you can see that the plus is now typing here, and then the regular things you can type it. Now the same thing we will now try to do with the gesture plugin. Before we were doing our own setup actually. If you remember this, where is the long press? We did that. Yep. You can see util.longpress. It is our own ways, right? If I go to this, find users, sorry, not find users. So if I just go here, Control B, you can see this is our logic. Now I will be using directly the logic of the plugin actually, but for that I will be taking this entire code, but I will be using the LongPress what they have mentioned in the plugin. So let me just copy paste that. Okay, so you can see app driver by keypad. So first thing is that I need to open that keypad, and after that I will be taking the accessibility ID of that 0. Then I need to long press. Now when I want to do the long press, right, I don't want to use this particular method, rather than I will be using the long press method of this actually. So I will copy this line, and where was that, this one, right? So I will be pasting that, and here you can see instead of driver only, I will be taking this driver. Okay, and now let's see here what it is telling. Cannot resolve method execute script in WebDriver. See, appdriver.getDriver normally returns the WebDriver actually. Let me show you that. Here you can see the return type is WebDriver. Now this WebDriver don't have actually this particular execute script. This execute script normally comes from your JavaScript executor actually. So what we can do, because we are using this as Android, right? So I will just say that as Android driver, and here I will just cast it to here. Okay, so the casting Android driver with this one, and then execute script gestures long press here immutable of element ID. Now which element actually? So this element. So 0 is my element, and here I will take this as 0, and you can see that the 0.getID is not accepting, because this getID is coming from a remote web element, but this 0 is a web element. So again, let's cast it here. The other things will remain as it is. There is nothing really happening anything. Now you can see there is a long press of a backspace also, right? So I will simply comment this one, and let's copy this gesture plugins method way of long press, and this backspace is there, right? So instead of 0, I will take this backspace, because this backspace I have identified by using WebDriver. So it is a web element. So like this you can do. Now one more thing what we can do, instead of doing like this every time repeating these things, right? We can even create an utility method here, like inside this a utility method, like let's say that I'll just show you guys that let's say that long press from gesture. I'm just giving some name here, and here I will be specifying this particular command actually. So whatever I've specified here, right? So I'll just copy this one, and let's go to this utility. I can take this web element, and here I will just do like this. Okay, now what happens whenever I call this, like this long press gesture, right? So you can simply come back here, and you can see instead of writing this big line, even I can do like this util dot, you can see long press gesture, and I will be simply passing this backspace. That's it, and then it will do the long press also. So this is some kind of, I'm just reducing this repetitive of this line into a util class. And in util class you can see I have taken Android driver, but you shouldn't be really using Android driver, because what happens if you want to do a long press for a iOS application, so this will not be a sufficient way to do that. So we can convert that this appdriver.getDriver is a web driver, right? So this one we can convert that into a JavaScript executor, so that it would be applicable for both Android and iOS. Okay, so now let's go to this long press Android, this particular test, and run this test to make sure that the long press which we have used right from the plugin and the utility method which we have used, is that really works fine or not. So let's do one thing. Let's run this test, and I will go here, run. My Appium server is running. Okay, seems like there is some problem. Let's see what is that. Okay, so it is telling that com.android.dialer is not supposed to be, it's supposed to be pre-installed. Why is it saying it is already installed here? Okay, so let's see what is the problem with this app activity and app package. Okay, so the problem is that the when I looked into that, the 13.0 version, right, OS version, the package and activity is bit different. Let me just update that a little bit. So com.google.android dialer, and here it should be appending with this way actually. So here this is com.android.dialer. I don't know why it is taking a different app package and app activity, but I have got it from the adb cell command dumpsys activity command. When I run into the terminal, it is coming. I will post that particular what you call command into this description. You can refer to that. Okay, fine then. So now let's run this test again, and let me open this simulator as well. Okay, so as you can see that LongPress worked with 800 millisecond. So it will backspace 1, then it will be long press on the backspace so that it would be deleting completely, and it should close my application. Yes, so like that you can run your test case. Okay, fine. So we could able to now use the appium gesture plugin to do the swipe gesture and also the long press. Now as I told, the other drag and drop and the double tap, that also will work as it is, so you can try it up yourself. So we have looked into all into the Android, right? But what about iOS? As I have spoken earlier, this particular plugin is a W3 action implementation, so the same command whatever we are using, that should work with your iOS as well. Now let's give it a try. So if you see that I have this iOS contact scroll, right, which we have done before, actually this one, how to work with that. Now let me pop up my iOS simulator and let's try it with my contacts application, but this time I will do a swipe gesture actually. Okay, so where is the simulator? So here is my iOS simulator and here is my contact. A simple scroll I will be using, or a simple swipe gesture I will do by using the appium gesture plugin. So let's do one thing. The way that we have created the test for the Android, the same thing I will be creating, but this time it would be a @ test actually. And here, instead of our customized or the pointer input and everything which we discussed before, I'm not going to use that, but rather I'm going to use, okay, this is for long press, right? So I will do one thing with this particular gesture, right? I will be creating for the swipe gesture also. So here what I'm going to do, instead of long press, I will say swipe. Okay, swipe gesture, and let's see what exactly the swipe gesture really need, the parameters. If you see this execute script, right, I'll simply copy paste this one to here into the utility here and this line, and here instead of this slider I'll just put it element, and here as we have looked into that I will be copying the same thing because driver is not allowed here. Okay, now here you can see the element dot get id. Here also I will be appending the remote web element, and percentage let me keep as it is. The direction is something which I will be accepting from here, so I will put a string and I will say direction, so that whichever direction I'm putting from there, that will be applicable here. Okay, as simple as that. So I'm just creating an utility method for this swipe gesture, and here I will put like this actually, swipe gesture plugin actually, so that it would be understandable properly. From gesture plugin this particular is coming. Now let's go back to my iOS contact scroll. This is the new test which we created, right? So I will be calling the gesture plugin method, which I put it as a utility method, and that is this one, swipe gesture plugin. These need two different things, right? One is your the slider on which I need to scroll it, or this list of web element, not this. Let me close this. Let me open my iOS simulator. So I need this particular list items so that the gesture plugin will understand on which I need to scroll actually. So that web element I need, or the remote web element, whatever it is there, and then I need to put the direction. Now where exactly the swipe will come? You see that if I want to scroll down, I need to swipe from bottom to up actually. So it means that the swipe is happening up actually. So I'll just put it as up. So now the second thing is that I need to get that particular slider, the slider screens inspecting, right? So I will be opening my Appium inspector and let's try to identify what is the slider value here. So I will open my Appium inspector and let me quickly add the capabilities here. This is a new one, so just give me a moment. I will add all the capabilities of the contact one. Okay, so I have got that into the Appium inspector. Now let's do one thing. Let's get this particular slider view actually here. So let's find it out now, which one is the parent one. So you can see that this contacts list view is the parent one. Give it a try here. So I'll just come back here and I will say that web element equal to, I'll say app driver dot get driver dot find element appium by dot accessibility id, and I will put this as my accessibility id. And now this element I will be passing here. Now let's see if this particular scroll is happening or not. So here is my simulator ready, and just run it and let's see if it works. Okay, so there is some problem is happening, and let's see what is that. Cannot inject test annotated method with class. Okay, this seems some problem with the, okay, so the thing is that I need to remove this. And one more thing here, if you see that this is not my simulator name, actually my simulator name is this one. Okay, iPhone 14 Pro Max, you can see that, and then run this test. Okay, as you can see, contact application, and you can see now the scroll is also happening actually, because it is only one time scroll I have given, so that's why the scroll worked actually here. You can see just with the 2 parameters I got it worked actually. So you can create like this utility method by fetching this line of code from the Appium Gestures plugin, and you can use it. So you can see long press and swipe gesture, the same thing. You can add the utility methods for your drag and drop or double tap, or like in future if they are adding more gestures, you can keep adding here, so that you don't really need to worry about this what you call multiple lines of code to keep updating every time. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it about this particular plugin, Appium Gestures plugin. You can review, and if you have any issues, you can go and put your issues here. If not, then you should be good to get started with this particular plugin. So thanks to these contributors who contributed to this project and helping us to to get this stuff done, kind of a ready-made methods for us. Okay, so that's pretty much it for today. And if you have any questions, please put it into the comment or reach out to me and we can discuss further. So stay tuned and do subscribe to this YouTube channel. We will be seeing some more interesting topics in our upcoming sessions. Thank you for watching.